Hi, I'm Bella, and welcome to part 3 of me actually learning how to play Satisfactory. I am a huge fan of management games, simulation games, building games, so this is a game I really enjoy, but for a while I had been sort of avoiding learning the more challenging parts of this game. So in this series, my partner is helping me learn how to actually do the hard parts of this game. So I've been building a factory with my partner and actually taking responsibility for the planning and figuring out where everything goes and understanding how it all works together and all that jazz. Last time we made a more complete iron factory setup, and we also started storing extra materials in a dedicated area with boxes. And most importantly, or at least most importantly to me, we redecorated our factory and base to this really fun purple color scheme. So that was really fun. But now our plan for today is to do some necessary upgrades. We need to upgrade. Well, first we need to get the next milestone, which is the part assembly upgrade. And then we want to upgrade our belts to Mark II. We want to add some constructors to sort of finish out the iron factory that we have planned. Start automating reinforced plates, which we need to wait for the next upgrade to do. And then sort of just see what we need to do next. So thank you for joining. Hope you enjoy. So the very first thing I want to start out doing today is getting stuff to make 3 more constructors to add to our iron factory. We've been working off of this iron factory plan that produces iron plates, iron rods, screws, and then also reinforced iron plates. Or I guess the first thing is called iron sheets, not plates. But anyways, iron sheets, rods, screws, and reinforced iron plates. And right now we have all of that being produced except for the reinforced iron plates because we need to unlock the assemblers in order to make that item. But other than that, everything is set up. However, in order to have all of the output that we want, we need to have, today we need to add 3 more constructors that are making screws. So that's the first thing that we're doing today because that was just a piece that was missing from the factory from last time. So that was a pretty easy thing to start with for this session because everything was already set up. Everything, it's all here. The logic is all here. The setup is all here. I just had to add it in basically. So this is just extending a part of the iron factory that I had already been working on last session. So this is part of that big area where we have a bunch of rows of splitters taking all of the iron, right here, it's taking a bunch of iron rods and feeding the iron rods into constructors. And those constructors are making screws. So originally, last time, the 2 constructors on that side that I'm facing right now, those we set up, but then we were waiting to set up the other 3, I think because we were just waiting on materials and also we didn't need them yet. So that's what I'm doing now. So I set up the 3 constructors, I connected them to all of the conveyor belts, and now I'm connecting them to power. We have a more a slightly more organized system for power lines now, but I'm still getting the hang of it. So I'm trying to connect the power lines and make them look nice and set up the correct way. But I'm not 100% sure of what the setup is just yet. So I'm not really sure what's supposed to be connecting to what. So I'm going to try to set these up the best that I can and then have my partner just double check to make sure I set them up the way that he planned for these all to be organized. Cause yeah, I think I connected everything to power here, but I'm not sure if I connected it in the way that things were meant to be set up. So anyways, theoretically that part is mostly set up though. So that's good. now that that's in a good spot, I want to come over and check on the copper setup that we have. So last time we worked on this very temporary copper situation here that is just producing copper ingots from smelters. We don't have like fully automated copper right now because the nearest, like the copper nodes that are close to us are not pure, and so it doesn't really feel worthwhile to set up complete automation on any of those copper nodes. But the closest pure copper node is annoyingly very far away, so we've been really hesitant to go and like set up copper automation when it's so far from base. So right now we have this very temporary setup, but because of the next because we need to be building more stuff that's going to require copper, and also like more specifically, the next milestone that we're working on is the part assembly milestone, and it requires a ton of cable, or not a ton, but 200 cable. We decided to take the temporary copper that we have set up and add some constructors to it. So we have one constructor making copper wire, and then we're going to have that feed directly into another constructor to make cable. So yeah, so that way we'll have a little bit of automation for the cable, so we are not having to constantly like stop, manually craft cable for all of the power lines that we need to create, and also for for the next milestone. So I'm just working on setting that up now. Initially, my plan was to set up a splitter so that we could save some copper wire and then save half of the copper wire as copper wire and then send the other half to the constructor to make cable. But right now we don't have a big need for copper wire, so we decided to just send all of the copper ingots, or all of the copper wire all of the copper ingots are turning into wire, and then all of the wire is turning into cable, because we don't really need to store the wire for now. That might change. I mean, that probably will change in the future, but for now, we're just going to work on cable. So yeah, we're setting that up. It is what it is. So we have our constructor set up for screws. We have some constructors set up for cable. And now the big thing that we're kind of like working on and kind of waiting on today is the materials that we need for the next milestone that we're working on, which is the part assembly milestone. So right now we are just missing the cable and the screws. So we've got the screws. I picked up the screws from our constructors that are manually creating them. And now we have the cable automated. So we just need to wait a little while for that to finish. Oh wait, it's not producing just yet though. Oh right, because my partner Tony is setting up the power over there. So he's getting the like temporary copper situation connected to power so that it'll actually start producing cable. And then we just have to kind of like wait a little while for that cable so that we can send off the next milestone. We wanted to start out with the part assembly milestone today because it'll unlock some tools that'll be like really helpful for us. Specifically, the one that's really going to help is the assembler. So I talked a little bit about the iron factory that we've been working on and how there's one piece that we're still missing, or that we don't have automation set up for yet, but it's part of the plan. And that is the reinforced iron plates, which require the assembler. So I know that I talked about this last session, but I'm saying it again, partly to remind myself and also for anyone who's like a beginner at this game. The constructors, which is like the thing that I'm jumping over right now, these can take one input and build something. So they can create anything that is made out of only one specific thing. But assemblers are what can take two different inputs and make something. So the reinforced iron plate needs to be made with an assembler, not with a constructor. And we don't have assemblers unlocked until we finish the next milestone, which is the part assembly milestone. So that's why we were focusing on that. Yeah. So while I'm working over here, Tony finished getting the rest of the materials for the milestone and just launched that.
Milestone reached. The assembler can produce more complex parts, including the first project part, smart plating, which is crucial for initiating project assembly. Project parts must be delivered to the space elevator. By completing your contracted duties as part of project assembly, you will definitely be helping achieve Fix-It company goals without any other ulterior motive. Note: humans cannot craft project parts. Do not worry about your inadequate crafting skill when compared to an assembler. Fix-It cherishes your innate human abilities, such as walking, striking objects, and commodifying natural resources.
Okay, so now we've sent off our little spaceship. What did I call this previously? I don't know what that thing is called, but our little spaceship that goes into space every time we finish a milestone, we've sent it off. We've finished the part assembly milestone. So now I'll be able to create some assemblers pretty soon here. Also, for a moment, I was trying to figure out why these constructors weren't on, and it wasn't until just now that I realized it was because I hadn't set them to create something. So I was like going around and triple checking that they were connected to power. They were, but I couldn't figure out why they weren't working, and it's because I had to tell them that they needed to make screws. So anyways, I figured that out. Sometimes this game humbles me a little bit when I make silly mistakes like that, but it's fine. We're totally good. It's all good. Anyways, I might have Tony review the power lines that I set up over in that like mess of constructors, because everything was a little bit tight and close together. So I'm still not 100% sure if I set them up correctly, but you know, it is what it is. So now that we finished the part assembly milestone, we actually only have one milestone left in tier 2, which is the like jump pads milestone. So when we get this, we'll unlock jump pads and this like jelly landing pad. But to get this milestone, we have to start making rotors, which I don't think we've had to make for anything at all yet. So it's not like we actually have a lot of the stuff needed for this milestone already. I tried to put stuff into the little spaceship thing, but it's in space. Anyways, so we already have like iron sheets we have automated, and we have a lot of them, so we're good there. And the cable we also have automated, so we're totally good there. But rotors are the thing that we have to figure out how to make. So at this point, we'll probably just like, my plan here as of right now is just to make them manually because we only need 50. But I feel like every time I see something new show up in the milestone, I'm like, yes, this means we'll have to make more of them. So in the meantime, we're going to start thinking about upgrading our conveyor belts. So we recently unlocked the Mark II conveyor belts, which can carry more on the conveyor belts. So some of the conveyor belts that we have, we do need to upgrade to Mark II because that'll help us be like, I don't know, just like operating more efficiently, I guess. And I don't know exactly which conveyor belts need to be upgraded, but I do know that the conveyor belts that are carrying the raw iron directly out of the miners are ones that have to be upgraded. So the plan will be to figure out which conveyor belts should be on Mark II. And the way to know is that any conveyor belts that are carrying, like that are taking in output that could be more than 60 items per minute, I think, which is the capacity for the Mark I conveyor belt. We want to upgrade them to Mark II so that they can actually carry all of the stuff. So the miners output more than what we're carrying on the Mark I conveyor belts right now, which means there's some output that we're just like ignoring basically. So we want to upgrade those conveyor belts to Mark II, but in order to do that, I have to use iron plates. Like we'll need a lot of iron plates to upgrade the conveyor belts. And so at this point, it is time to start automating iron plates or reinforced iron plates. So I made a list of the materials that we would need to create 2 assemblers, and those are going to be the 2 assemblers that will make the reinforced iron plates. And right now I'm just getting those materials. One of the materials that we need is rotors. So I did just like handcraft some rotors because we don't have any yet. But the rest of the materials I have from, well, I guess I handcrafted the reinforced iron plates too. I handcrafted most of the materials actually. But we did have cables already, being automated. So I grabbed the materials that we need for that. And now I need to start planning how to make, or how to kind of, where to put the reinforced iron plate setup. So with this iron factory that we have set up, we have enough materials to have 2 assemblers creating reinforced iron plates. And they are made out of iron sheets and screws. So I have to figure out how to get screws, which we're making over here where I'm standing now, and then also iron sheets to one like shared location where we can put them onto assemblers. So this box right here is like taking in some of our iron sheet output. The rest of it is going over to a storage box in our like little storage area. So I know that I'm going to have to connect this spot here somehow to assemblers. And then also the screw output. But I haven't quite, at this point, I really don't know where I want to put the assemblers or like how they need to be arranged. I haven't even really looked at them yet. So I don't, like, I know they have 2 different outputs, but I really don't know how to set them up yet. So I know like we conveniently, because we left this storage box here, we have a really good spot for the iron sheet output, just like kind of ready to go. But I haven't like grabbed all of the screws output yet. So my next step is going to be setting up, like first setting up the assemblers and, well, I guess 2 parts. One of the parts is setting up the assemblers and one of the parts is like figuring out the screw output and where I want to send that. So first I want to just sort of like take a look at an assembler and see how big it is and what the output and input spots look like. So we have 2 output spots 2 input spots. That's what the orange like areas are, and then 1 output spot. So I'm trying to figure out where I want to put it. It's also huge. This is a lot bigger than a constructor. It's basically, I think it's like 2 squares of foundation large, if not more, where the constructors are like, the constructors fit nicely in 1 little square for the most part. So it's big. They're really big. So I think I want to put them facing this direction, so a little bit sideways, because I think we can get the iron sheets over to this spot really easily. And it'll also be pretty easy for me to gather up the output from the screw constructors and send it to this spot. So now I'm planning how to set up, like how to arrange all of these things. So the first thing I'm going to do, well, actually, the first thing that I'm going to do is get some help from my partner to like kind of understand how this is going to go. So I'm not like totally sure how to manage 2 different types of input. So far, everything that we've done when we've had to take one type of material and input it into a different a machine, we've been able to set up these rows of like splitters, for instance, and just like put splitters in a row and have one belt going through the splitters and into the machines. But because we have two different types of input for these machines, it won't be as simple as just like putting one belt. So first step, I am just gathering up all of the output of the screws onto these mergers. And then I'll take those screws from the mergers and connect them into the assembler input. I put this merger in the wrong spot. Oops. But the part, like taking the actual output from the screws and connecting it, but also keeping space for the iron plates, that's the part that I need a little guidance from my partner on. So the initial plan is we have the screws right there. So the initial plan is just to like connect the screws into one side of both of the assemblers, and I'm just like sort of deciding which side to use. I want to figure out which side will be easier, like which side it makes sense to put the screws on so that it'll be easier to add in the iron sheets, because I think we'll have to basically have the iron sheets going on conveyor belts above the conveyor belts for the screws. It still confuses me just a little. So we're going to put the screws on the right side of the inputs, and then we'll connect the iron sheets to the left side. So I'm just placing splitters down here. I placed that one wrong, but we're placing splitters down so that we can sort of continue this row of conveyor belts where the screws are, and then have them go over into the assemblers. So this part's nice and easy. It's just like a straight conveyor belt splitter input situation. This is like just like all of the conveyor belts that I've placed for constructors. So easy part is done. And now we have to do the more complicated part. So this is the part, again, that I'm getting advice from my partner. And basically, apparently the strategy here is to add some splitters that will go on top of this splitter to create like a multiple level setup. So if we place two splitters, one on top of the other, on top of that first level splitter, we can get this like second level situation here. So I'm going to do that on both of these spots. And then we'll go through and connect the conveyor belt from the output where the iron sheets are coming out of, and then through these like two multiple, or like not multiple, but second layer or like higher up layer splitters that we have. And then we'll connect those splitters into these like conveyor belt elevator things. I like looking at it and doing it, it makes sense. But it was still a little challenging for my brain to understand like what, like where everything goes and like what it's like, you know, what is going from where to where. But basically, again, the setup is we're taking the output from the metal sheets, bringing it into a like second level conveyor belt, which we built by adding two splitters above our bottom splitter, and then using the like conveyor belt like elevator thing. I actually forgot what it's called, but that thing to raise up the conveyor belt. So, anyways, we have it set up. We're good. So we officially have our two assemblers like in line where we want them to go. Our plan here is to bring the outputs from those assemblers, which are the reinforced iron plates, and create some sort of path of conveyor belts to have the output be able to wind up in another box in our little like storage area where we have boxes of other materials. So we're trying to sort of like map out this whole area right here where we're walking, which will end up being conveyor belts leading output of stuff into our little storage zone. So, yeah, it's a little, I mean, it's not that complex. Like, it makes sense. We already have a lot of stuff set up where we want things to go. But yeah, there's still like a decent amount going on. So I'm going to set the assemblers to make reinforced iron plates and actually get things started here. So I'm watching the assembler like fill up with resources and like watching it successfully get all of the resources that it needs, which means that we set up all of our belts correctly and everything is working as it should, which is great and really satisfying. And I am feeling quite proud because that was like a bit of a complex setup for me. But so now I'm going to set up some mergers so that we can get that conveyor belt started and send it over to a box in our little storage area. So this part, nice and easy, same as always, mergers next to the like output so that we can get both of those onto one belt. And then we're going to take the belt and bring it over to our little storage area. So, not too bad. I think it's definitely, this was another, like, I think going through this playthrough, there keeps being moments where I do something that's like not ultimately that challenging, but I do something like slightly challenging for the first time. And it's fun to sort of like go through that. So like setting up assemblers for the first time. And now the super fun joy of blowing a fuse, which I don't think it's technically our first time doing that. And it definitely won't be our last, but at this point, I'm pretty sure that we blew a fuse because we added too many machines onto our power grid. And we just exceeded our production capacity. So we're not doing anything complicated here. We're just adding another biomass burner. But I am noticing at this point that this is basically the last biomass burner that we can add. Like after this, we kind of run out of space. So like we're hitting a point where we will need to start planning power better or like thinking about power more. I'm sure I said this previously too. This also is another theme of like we really need to start making a like kind of more advanced power solution. But let's turn it back on first. Okay, we're good. all is well for now. But basically like the only power source that we have right now are the biomass burners. So yeah, we are going to make like a slight adjustment here to make power just like a little bit more efficient because we can do this now. So previously we had just been using biomass as fuel for our biomass burners, which like makes sense. So we were just putting biomass into a little container and then sending that along this conveyor belt to all of our burners. But we are now able to make solid biofuel, which we can make in a constructor. And that is just like a little bit more efficient, I guess, for energy. So we're going to basically just add like one little step on our power production line and add, so instead of having biomass in a container feeding into all of the biomass burners, we're now going to have, we're going to take our biomass container and put it into a constructor, which will make pure, or not pure, I guess, what is it called? It'll make like biofuel, solid biofuel. That's what it's called. So that'll help make our power just like a little bit more efficient. I realized I did not align those. So another thing that I am constantly doing in the game is like thinking that I set something up right and then going to, connect things together with a conveyor belt and realizing, no, I did not do those. Um, so this was kind of like a tight squeeze because we're really running out of room back here. But I was able to connect these, so we're good there. So this will help our power at least like just be a little bit more efficient. So yeah, it's still not, it's like with a lot of things in this game, we like, this is the power that like the best power setup for now, and in the future we will want it to be a little better, a little more efficient, but for now it's working, so yay. Crisis averted, blown power fuse fixed, we're good to go. And like energy production is looking pretty good, so yeah, it's all good. I'm checking in on some of the copper production here. We still don't have like an automated setup here. So right now we are manually taking copper, like raw copper, and feeding it into these copper smelters. And then the copper smelters feed into the constructors that are making wire and then cable. But that like first step, putting in the raw copper, is still manual, which is not the best setup. But again, like at this point, the plan is for this copper setup to be temporary. So like it doesn't really feel like we need to make things more complex. So now I'm checking over with my partner, who is working on bringing over all of our cool stuff that we want to put into the storage boxes. So he added a storage box for screws and then extended a conveyor belt for screws, and then is working on this like second story conveyor belt, which has the reinforced iron plates that we just set up. So now it's looking pretty cool. We have a whole row of multiple storage boxes. So this is really convenient because our factory at this point is like pretty spread out. We definitely are producing stuff in a lot of different places. And so now, instead of having to walk through like all the way through to the multiple areas in our factory to get the materials when we want to like send off a milestone or build something big, we can just go to this one spot where all of the boxes are, which is very nice and very satisfying. I really like that. So yeah, here are nice boxes, well organized. Thank you, Tony. It looks great. And also this was so satisfying seeing the row of reinforced iron plates come in, because that just felt like such a big, like, I don't know, like it felt like a big feat to me. I know we're still very early game, but that was the first thing that we started making with assemblers. So that was cool. So next is we recently unlocked chainsaws, as I don't remember what the milestone was, but there was a milestone where we unlocked chainsaws, which is very exciting because now we're going to be able to, I think it was like obstacle clearing. So one is convenient because we can clear like trees if we need them out of the way for building, but also something that is particularly exciting is that we're going to be able to upgrade our power setup a little bit more by unlocking, or by starting to use wood. So now we're gonna go cut some trees down. We learned that if you cut down cactuses, they give you mycelia, which is kind of cool. We'll be able to like study that in the MAM and unlock some cool mycelia stuff. But it was nice to have like a pretty easy to find source of mycelia. Sometimes like in another save that I've been playing, we've had to kind of travel a lot to find mushrooms. So I don't know, it's kind of nice to just like have mycelia right there. But anyways, that's not what we're looking for. The point is to go find wood. So I'm gonna chop down some trees. Okay, I am going to spare you from listening to me chainsaw wood for a super long time, but we went on a pretty big adventure and I chopped down a lot of trees with my chainsaw. So sorry, trees. But yeah, it means we have wood, which will be a little bit, again, like a little bit more efficient with like space and time and whatever for our power setup. So we are going to extend the power setup just one small bit more to work with the wood that we just collected. So now originally we had a box of biomass that was going into a constructor, and the constructor was turning that into solid biofuel. But now we're going to have a box of wood and then a constructor turning that into biomass, and then our, solid biofuel, all of the generators, all that jazz. So just like a little bit more convenient for us to be able to collect wood and directly put that into a box. And that's going to be like our nice, efficient power setup. So yeah, now we're using wood. The next project that I'm going to start working on is upgrading the conveyor belts to Mark II, the conveyor belts that need to be upgraded at least. So that Mark II conveyor belts need reinforced iron plates, which we just started automating. So I'm going to grab some of the plates that were like created from our assemblers. Well, I guess I'm going to grab all of them because why not? But I'm going to grab those and start working on upgrading the conveyor belts. Also, I didn't know this until today, until working on this, but for conveyor belts and like some other items, you don't have to destroy and then rebuild the conveyor belt to upgrade to Mark II. You can literally just like build over the conveyor belt and it will just upgrade it for you, which is very convenient. I was a little bit like nervous, I guess, about having to rebuild all of our conveyor belts to upgrade them, but we don't have to. We can just do this, which is so nice. So the first thing that we need to do is upgrade like this row of conveyor belts that's coming out of the miner, because the miner can output more raw iron than the Mark I conveyor belt could carry. So we were just sort of like not getting full use of it. But now we're getting all of the iron ore from the miners. Also, hi, big guy. He's just hanging out in the factory. Anyways, we're able to get all of the raw iron from the miners, which means like all of the stuff in our iron factory is going to be like a little bit faster, or like producing things a little bit faster because we have more material to work with from the very start. So that is very convenient, and things are looking good. Things are nice. Upgrading the conveyor belts that were coming directly out of the miners was like That was sort of the biggest conveyor belt that needed upgrading. But now we're going through and thinking about if there are any other conveyor belts that need to be upgraded. And my partner realized that this conveyor belt that is going down the middle here with all of the iron rods on it, that can be upgraded to Mark II as well. So we're going to upgrade this. Not all of the, I know I've mentioned this, but not all of the conveyor belts will need to be upgraded. It's only conveyor belts that the stuff that is going on them could be more than the capacity of Mark I conveyor belts. So Mark I conveyor belts can only carry, I believe it is 60 items per minute. So some of these belts, like that's more than enough. But some of them, especially the ones that are being fed into from a lot of different machines and stuff like that, those can definitely be a little bit faster. So anyways, we're upgrading that and then just sort of like doing a general, a little tour of the factory to try to find if there are any other conveyor belts that need upgrading. But I think at this point, I think we got all the conveyor belts. I think all of the conveyor belts are good. So that means we have officially completed all of the planned items that we wanted to do for today. And now we get to decide like what we want to do next. And there are a lot of fun things that I'm really excited to do. Like we have another hub upgrade to do, the jump pads. And recently we unlocked the awesome shop. But we haven't actually built any of that yet, and I'm pretty excited to build that. So there's like a lot of fun things to do. But before we get to all of the fun stuff, my partner suggested doing like a sort of health check on everything that we have running so far, just to see if there's anything that's broken that we maybe didn't notice, or just like see maybe what we need to fix. We just looked at the power a lot because we had to make some small adjustments there. So we're feeling pretty good about power. But there's like, we're starting to get to a point where there's a lot of stuff going on in our factory. So we're just going to kind of do a little walkthrough and see if anything is weird. And sure enough, we noticed that something is weird. Are not really weird. It's just like a minor flaw. And this was pointed out by my partner, not by me. I did not notice this. So basically the thing that he noticed is that the assemblers that are making reinforced iron plates are not getting enough iron sheets to be working at like full capacity. So the problem, as he described to me, is that because we have this like one source of iron sheets and we are splitting it and sending half to the assemblers and half to storage, the assemblers are actually not getting as much of our total iron sheet output as they need. So basically the assemblers in total need about 75% of the output that we are making from our iron sheets, but because we have one splitter, they're only getting 50%. So Tony suggested this fix where basically we have our initial splitter that is like, okay, that splitter takes 50% to storage and 50% to our assemblers. We can add on top of that, or not on top of it, but add to that, like after that, another splitter and then a merger. And because it'll be like splitter, splitter, merger, basically the first splitter will split things 50-50, and 50% of it will go to the assemblers, and then the other 50% of it will go into the next splitter, which will split that 50-50, and then that remaining part is basically 25% and 25% of our total overall iron sheets. 25% of that will go with the first 50% into the assemblers, and the other 25% will go to storage. So that all is a little bit confusing to me, even just trying to explain it. But basically, what it leaves us with is 75% of our iron sheets going to the assemblers and 25% going back to storage, which is exactly what we want. So, kind of a goofy trick to have like a splitter and then a splitter and then a merger, but it should work. So, here we are just setting up that row of splitter, splitter, merger, and then connecting it with conveyor belts. It's like kind of a goofy looking setup, but it should work. Again, it should work. But now I'm trying to understand like where the conveyor belts need to go. So we have the first conveyor belt, and then like the last conveyor belt coming off of that merger setup to connect into the assemblers. But now we have to figure out where do the conveyor belts need to go for this stuff down here. So like this is the part that is confusing because the first conveyor or the first splitter needs to have one output going into the merger and another output going into the second splitter. And then the second splitter has to have one output going into the merger and one output going to storage, I believe. Yeah, and that's what we're yes, okay. There we go. And that's what we're setting up here, which again is a tad bit confusing, but it makes sense. Like it looks goofy and it is confusing, but it makes sense. You know what I mean? So anyways, that's fixed. Nothing was like necessarily broken in the factory that required this fix. It's just that we want the assemblers to be on 100% of the time and like being as efficient as possible. So this helps make that happen. So yeah, now with all of these fixed, we should have happy assemblers that are on 100% of the time. So we're just double checking that now and watching to make sure that like once the assembler finishes making one thing, it immediately starts on the next thing, which it looks like it's doing now. So that's good. But then here we see that it does have like a few seconds between assembling things, which means that something is not quite right. And so we have to figure out what that is. I think ultimately we ended up, I mean, like we're basically, I am just sort of like running around trying to figure out like, what isn't right. But here we realized that it's this conveyor belt that could be a little bit faster. So this fix, faster conveyor belt. So we're like updating this kind of like main conveyor belt that goes through the middle of all of this to be Mark II. This should allow for our assemblers to be working at like full capacity constantly on. So yeah, this was another moment in playing where I was sort of like, oh gosh, what am I doing? How do these work? But it is really satisfying to like have not really a problem. Like it wasn't exactly an issue, but to have something not working perfectly and then go through it and figure out like what we can do to fix it and make it a little bit faster. So now, boom, there should be no gaps between when our assembler is working on each item. So because the belts are like totally optimized, we're like we're being efficient with I don't know. Anyways, that made that a little bit faster. It's not a huge difference, but it's still kind of cool to see. So health check, pretty successful. Now at this point, I'm pretty confident that everything in the factory is like working well, doesn't have issues. And not only is it working well, but it's like at like as efficient as it can be. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Now we get to like take a moment, admire all of the hard work that we've done, and then sort of regroup and make a plan for what to work on next, because we've finished all of the things that we plan to do. at the start of today, and we've done our little like health check to make sure that the factory is working. So we're deciding what to do next. And I think I already mentioned like the things that we have coming up next, but basically our plans are to finish the tier 2 milestones because we only have one left, which is the jump pad milestone. And then we can build the awesome shop and awesome sink, which we don't super need at this point. But again, I'm really excited for those. So I want to get those done. So yeah, first up is to get so I'm gathering the materials for the next milestone. But before I finish that, we blow a fuse again. So, oops, power. Yikes. So basically this is the very last spot in this row that we could fit a biomass burner before we are completely out of space in this row. And then we need to make some other sort of plan. Because we technically still have this space, I'm just going to make our final biomass burner and extend this row fully and, wait to make a better plan later. Yeah. I will admit that in this moment, I opted for a somewhat quick fix, mostly because we're so close to finishing tier 2 stuff. I'll fix power after we launch our tier 2 milestone rocket thing. It's fine. So yeah. I'm doing the same thing that I've been doing, which is adding another biomass burner, adding another splitter in our row that is delivering all of the solid biofuel, and then connecting this to power. And that should be good enough to get our grid back on and working. So let's turn it back on. And it's good. It's good for now. It's fine. Anyways, so back to gathering all of the materials to launch the jump pads milestone, and we'll launch it now.
Milestone reached. The Fix-It jump pad combines high technology and innovation for optimized factory traversal and an ideal travel experience. Clarification. Ideal travel experience not guaranteed. Individual results may vary. Pioneers are responsible for all workplace accidents resulting from jump pad usage.
So, nice. Another milestone done. And again, the milestone that we just unlocked is the jump pads one. So it unlocks jump pads, which we can use to launch ourselves. And then this goo that if you land in the goo, you don't take fall damage. We haven't really needed either of those right now, so that's not a huge thing. But we're done with tier 2, which is very exciting. However, tier 3 is locked. So we can't do any more milestone achievements until we complete this next objective, which is to build the space elevator, which we haven't looked into yet. And here's me realizing just how expensive it is to make, and also how huge. So this is on our radar of things to do, but the space elevator requires a ton of materials. It's a bunch of concrete, iron plates, iron rods, and wire, which thankfully almost all of those we're already automating. So 3 out of the 4 of those items we'll be able to get just by waiting for our factory to finish making them. But we don't have technically, we're not saving copper wire right now. We are creating copper wire. We have a constructor making copper wire, but we're feeding all of the copper wire into cable because up until now we've needed a lot of copper, or we've needed a lot of cable, but we haven't needed really copper wire for anything. So I'm adding the space elevator to my to-do recipes on the side of my screen just so that I can see what we need. And at this point, I know that I want to change the copper factory up a little bit. before, like, I'll have to adjust our little copper setup so that we can start automating wire. But first I want to make the awesome shop. So I am going to get the materials to make the awesome shop and then the awesome sink, because I'm pretty excited just to like see it. There are some things that you can only unlock through the awesome shop. Some of them are like really, really helpful for the game, like some of the stuff that I will use in a moment here. Some of them are just like kind of fun and silly, which is also super fun and important for the game. Anyways, but the way that the awesome shop works is it has, I'll show you once we like actually build it. But there's stuff that you can purchase in the awesome shop, but you have to purchase them with these like tickets that are only for the awesome shop. So basically the way that you get the tickets is by using the awesome sink, which I will also show you once we get that set up. But the awesome sink is just this like thing that eats up random materials and gives you tickets just for fun. So it's not the most urgent thing, but there's like at least one thing that I'm thinking of in the awesome shop that I'd really like to unlock, which is ladders. Ladders end up being really useful, I think. So here's the awesome shop. I think it's really cute. So we can kind of like take a look at the stuff in the awesome shop a little bit. But also in order to actually purchase anything, we need the awesome sink, which is kind of big. I sort of forgot just how large it is. So I need to figure out like where I want to put it. And I'm thinking about putting it back here behind the hub somewhere. I'm just like looking for a good spot for it because I want it like easily accessible but still a little bit out of the way. So I'm actually thinking that this spot right here that's like directly behind the hub is going to be a good spot for it, because like it's close enough that it's really easy to get to and to use, but it's not in the like is big. So I don't want this right in the middle of our factory. So I'm getting Tony's opinion on if this is a good spot to put it. Because there are other areas that we could put it that are a little bit further away from base if we wanted to. But I'm just like seeing what he thinks about putting it right here, right behind the hub, and just extending the foundation a little bit. And yeah, like it looks like it could fit pretty decently there. So we're going to build out the foundation a little bit and then add the awesome sink so that we can buy stuff from the awesome shop in a minute here. Oh, right. We realized, yeah, the trees were kind of in the way. So we cleared the trees and then sort of like fit it just into place. And there it goes. It's kind of nice. It's huge. It's like really big. We're also going to set up a box, like a storage container right in front of the awesome sink, and then connect it with conveyor belts so that we can, for now at least, we can just put stuff that we want to sink into that storage and it'll like feed into the awesome sink. So kind of convenient. And I think at this point, I'm pretty sure my partner just like put some random things into the storage container. It's not that they were not valuable items. It's just that they were like random items to sort of get it started. Ultimately, we will end up like the plan is to put things into the awesome sink when we are creating so many of them that we don't need to keep them in storage. So any items that we've just like made an excess of, it's quite silly. It's like a very silly aspect of this game that we are like using. We're like just we have an abundance of stuff that we're creating that we can just get rid of it, but it's fine. Anyways, we set that up. I left Anthony to connect it to power, and I'm going and adjusting our copper setup a little bit. So like I mentioned, at this point, we actually do need to start creating and saving copper wire, but we still also need copper cable. or not, I guess it's not copper cable, it's just called cable. So I'm trying to figure out a setup that will basically take our copper ingot output and then have some of it going, well, I guess all of it going into copper wire, but then of that copper wire output, some of it going into a constructor making cable, and then some of it just going directly into storage so that we can save some copper wire for the space elevator, and then also just whatever other future stuff we might need it for. And then also keep making cable because we need it. So yeah. I didn't leave a ton of space when I initially made this copper constructor area, so I'm a little bit tight on space here, but I do have enough space to just add a second little construction area. So I'm sort of leaving the two constructors for wire and then cable kind of how they were, but just adjusting the spacing a little, and then adding this second constructor for more cable, because I think that ends up being a pretty efficient way of doing this. I don't know for sure, but I think it works. I hope. But anyways, yeah, so now we have copper set up to make cable and wire. And then, unfortunately, classic, the theme of the day, we blew a fuse again. I think it was because we just connected another thing, the Awesome Sync, which I'm assuming is using a pretty decent amount of power. So I think at this point we have stretched this power setup as much as we possibly can. We have used all of the space that we possibly can to fit as many biomass burners as we could, and we've upgraded belts, we've upgraded to be outputting solid biofuel, we have wood, and it's still not quite enough. So we're talking about ways to upgrade our power setup, and basically we need to start the plan that we are talking about is, instead of having just one row of these biofuel burners, basically splitting it in two, kind of similar to a lot of the other parts of the factory that we have, where we have one central conveyor belt that then splits off into two sets of assemblers, for instance. So we're trying to do a similar setup here, and basically move this row of biofuel burners over, and then have biofuel burners on the other side as well, to kind of double the biofuel burners that we have, similar to all this kind of thing, where we have that one conveyor belt and then stuff on either side. So that's what we're going to work towards. I need to go get more concrete to build a little bit more foundation. And then, yeah, it feels like we sort of saw this, or at least maybe should have seen this coming. This is at least the third time at least that we blew a fuse during just this session of playing. So yeah, it was time to rebuild power. So my partner just destroyed all of our power setup. I'm gonna build out a little bit more foundation here, so we've got a little bit more space, and then the plan is to rebuild it pretty much exactly how it was, but having biofuel burners on either side instead of just biofuel burners in one row. So yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Yeah. I think I have to imagine, I don't know because I'm only one person, but I have to imagine that this experience of hitting a point in gameplay where you have to just completely redo your power because you've blown a fuse 3 times in a row. I have to imagine that this happens to everyone playing this game. I also have to imagine that this will happen to us again. It feels like power is just gonna pretty consistently be the thing that like is like this, where you're constantly having to like improve and adjust. Anyway, so this is what our power setup is going to look like. We have this central row and then the two lines of biofuel burners. We also, I think we need to have a little bit more output of the solid biofuel. So first we're going to just like move the constructors and everything around a little bit. But also a thing that we can be doing that we haven't been doing yet is using leaves. Well, we were using leaves initially, but basically we want to have a setup where we use wood, which is like ideal, but we also use leaves. So I like, I don't exactly know how we're going to set that up, but the plan will be to include, like, basically to make enough space that we could include that as well. So right now I'm just sort of like adjusting the spacing for our like constructors and everything here and wrapping it around a little bit. So we have, it's the same stuff that was here already, but just like in a slightly different configuration. So this is still going to be a box that contains wood that goes, like, we connect with a conveyor belt to a constructor that will turn the wood into biomass, and then that constructor feeds into this next constructor that turns the biomass into solid biofuel, and then that is what is put on the conveyor belt going into all of the burners. So it's the same setup, but just configured a little bit differently. And theoretically, like a slightly better use of space, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. So there we go. That's something. So our power's at least like back on and going. We're like getting things going again. Hopefully this is like a better setup. We have way more, I guess our power is not on yet, sorry, but our power is like set up again. We have more like, yeah, we have way more burners. Everything should be like in order. So theoretically this will be a better setup. So, and it looks good. Like, our capacity is now way higher than it was before. You can tell sort of that like where our consumption is sort of like where our capacity was previously. So that's like why we were blowing a fuse, which makes sense. But now we should be good. So yeah, great. Perfect. Anyways, I'm going back to my copper setup, which is what I was working on before we blew a fuse. It's mostly done. I think I just need to finish connecting conveyor belts. We did blow a fuse again. But I'm just gonna, I'm gonna finish connecting my copper a little bit. And then, and then I'll go investigate the power situation. But yeah, so there's the wire constructors. One of them goes into, or sorry, there's the copper wire constructors. One of them feeds into the cable constructor. And then I just need a second storage box. So I have the one storage box for cable. This will be a storage box for copper wire. Gonna connect those up. And now the copper production area, oh, I missed this conveyor belt. Okay, now the copper production area should be all good to go once we have power back up. So now we can go look at power. Well, I guess I'm gonna connect this to power. Power is not on yet, but I'm gonna preemptively connect this back up to power a little bit. So I needed one more power pole, or maybe I just didn't notice this power pole. Honestly, it's even though we have a much neater situation for our power lines, but they still confuse me a bit. I definitely, you know, I'm getting there. Which also, we had a like much neater power situation, and then when I made this like copper area, or like this part of the copper area, I tried to keep having like only putting the power lines on grids just to keep things a little bit organized, but you know, it's fine. It's like it could be better, it could be worse. Anyways, I think while I was working on this, Tony turned power back on. So we do like everything is, going again. Here come all of our beautiful copper wires. Like automation is happening. We're good. And then we were sort of looking at what might have been causing some issues with the power. And Tony pointed out that our middle power like conveyor belt that was taking all of the solid biofuel was still just a Mark 1 conveyor belt. So he upgraded it to Mark 2, and we're hoping that that helps a little bit. But there might just be a little bit of an issue with having this one main conveyor belt feeding into all of these different biomass burners, because at each one there's a splitter, and so like at each splitter there's like less stuff going forward, and so by the time we're all the way at this end biomass burner, it's just getting less getting biofuel a little bit slower. And I have not done the math on like if it's fast enough to work, but basically our hypothesis is that when we rebuilt all of the burners from scratch, and so they like didn't have any fuel in them, it took a little bit of time to sort of like get more fuel into the ones on the end, and we lost power too quickly. There wasn't enough power to get, it was like a timing thing, hopefully. So knock on wood, hopefully probably it was just a timing thing, and now that everything is going, we shouldn't have a power issue again, hopefully. So yeah, anyways, power is looking pretty good now, we think. I still have some concerns, but it's probably fine. So at this point, we are pretty much just waiting on some of our automated stuff to keep going, mostly just the wire, so that we can do the space elevator, which is what I have that, like the list on the side of my screen is the ingredients that we need. Ingredients, is that the right word? I guess materials. It's the materials we need to make the space elevator. Most of it we probably have enough of with like iron plates, iron rods, and concrete, but wire we do have to wait a while. So right now I'm just sort of going through and checking on some like MAM research stuff. I don't think there's anything that I have to research, but I like to just sort of like see what we've seen so far and what we can keep an eye out for. There's a lot we have yet to research, but there's a lot that we have come across or will come across soon. But yeah, right now we're kind of just waiting for our automation to keep going, keep cooking. So now is a pretty good time to actually go get a little bit more wood for our power production setup, because it's just always going to need more wood. So Tony already went off to gather some more wood, but I am going to go help gather some wood as well. Just trying to decide like where to go. I actually, while on my way to gather some wood, I ran into a blue power slug, which is pretty cool, but it was right next to a monster that kind of scares me. These things really scare me, but I learned that you can go up to them crouching and then they won't like open up and attack you. So if you like go up to them not crouched, they'll open up and these like explodey things come and attack you. But if you go crouched, they won't even notice you. And then I saw another monster, but I just sort of like ran away from it. I just pretended not to notice it there, you know, as one does. And then I chopped down a tree. And then I did chop down some more trees, but once again, I will spare you the like several minutes of just chainsawing trees. But yeah, I chopped down some trees and then I headed back to base and I put all of my wood away. And then it was like you could sort of notice it in the distance as I was coming back to base. But Tony actually just set up another box on the other side of all of this. That was what I was talking about earlier about having a box for leaves as well. So I put some leaves there. But now we're able to make biofuel from both leaves and wood. Wood is like more efficient, or like you get more biofuel from wood, but like we're gathering, like you gather leaves when you chop down trees anyways, so we might as well make use of those too. So yeah, put all of that stuff away, so hopefully Power is very happy, fingers crossed. And then now I'm just kind of putting some stuff away, like stuff that I've run into while I was exploring. And now I really want to take a look at the Awesome Shop and potentially see if we can buy some stuff, or at least like check the prices of some stuff. So a big thing that I'm really hoping to do with this factory base is to make some walkways. I know that there's like something in the Awesome Shop that has walkways. I think where I will find it. I'm just getting distracted by all the cool stuff we can make, like the different foundation and the different walls and the windows and the doors, which I didn't really realize there were doors, but now I'm very excited about it. But in architecture, there are two different types of walkways. There's modern catwalks and industrial walkways, and I haven't decided which one I want yet. But I really want to unlock one of those to create some walkways around our factory, just to make it a little bit easier to, like, basically we have all these big, huge machines and we don't really have paths to walk between the machines. And we also have like conveyor belts going all over the place. So what I'm picturing is some in the air walkways that will allow us to kind of like walk through the factory a little bit easier and just like get to different areas a little faster. So I'm still going back and forth between which walkway. I like them both a lot. I really like the look of the industrial walkways. Also, ladders are going to be super helpful. But like I noticed the industrial walkways don't come with stairs, but the modern catwalk does. But the industrial walkways have ramps, so we don't really need stairs. I don't know. I was going back and forth. I couldn't make a decision. But I know that I want to unlock one of those at some point, so that I can start making some walkways. And we already have 6 tickets, or coupons, I guess. Six Fix-It coupons that we can use in the Awesome Shop, which I think covers the cost of one, either the modern catwalk or the industrial walkway. So I can unlock that. We just have to pick one, which, yeah. In the meantime, I'm going to start gathering the supplies that I need for the space elevator. So at this point, all of the items that we need for the space elevator, we are producing. So concrete, iron plate, iron rod, and wire are all automated. So I just need to go like grab them from our various spots. So I'm going to grab concrete from over here, which we definitely do have enough concrete. So we're good on concrete. And then the rest of the items are going to be back in our, like, see how annoying it is to have to go through all of our machinery and all of our conveyor belts. Like a walkway. A walkway would really be nice. It would really help. I'm going back to look at the walkways once more, just to think about it. So each walkway set is 5 tickets, so I can get one. I can't get both. I have to pick one. Anyways, where was I? What was I doing? Oh, I think I'm gonna make Anthony decide, or at least help me decide on if we want if we want walkways, the industrial walkway or the modern catwalk, which I think they're both going to do the exact same thing. It's mostly an aesthetic choice. Anyways, where was I? Oh yes, I'm gathering the materials that we need for the space elevator. So we definitely have enough iron rods as well. So I'm just going to grab all of the iron rods that I need. And then next up is the iron plates, which are where? I think I skipped past the box for them. Yeah, here are the iron plates, which we have more than enough of those as well. And then really all that's left for the space elevator is the wire, which we're gonna have to be kind of patient on. We've definitely made having nearly 500 wire is great. Like what an improvement. But yeah, it's gonna take a while. We're not quite there yet. At this point, I am gonna go back to the awesome shop situation, and I'm putting some iron rods into the awesome sink because we have kind of a lot of them. We're producing a lot of them. So I don't know how much they're worth in terms of tickets, but like we just have a ton of them, so it's kind of easy to just put them in there. I'm gonna print the tickets that we do have now, I think. Yeah, okay. I was thinking about it. I'm going to print the tickets that we have now, and then make a decision on which walkway to get and start doing like a little bit of walkway building while I'm waiting, to get the rest of the copper wire that we need for the space elevator. I'm just like looking to see how quickly we are generating points to get the coupons, which like isn't super fast, but isn't super slow either. Like it's just a thing that happens in the background. So I don't know. It's not too bad. Anyways, I am going to pick a walkway. I think, yeah, we're going to pick the industrial walkways just because I like the way that it looks a little bit better. I think like the railings and like the like line down the middle of them, I just like how it looks.
Fun fact: architecture was invented when people began building buildings. If it had been invented slightly beforehand, perhaps more old buildings would still be around. Humanity sometimes lacks vision.
Incredible insight from Ada. Very great. Anyway, so now we have the industrial walkways, and I want to just start making like a little initial walkway. My goal, like I've mentioned, my goal is to have a walkway that makes it a little bit easier to kind of like walk across the busier parts of the factory. We don't necessarily need a walkway everywhere, but like there's just, like, you know, there's just a lot here. So it'll be nice to have a walkway to walk over it all. I don't know exactly where to put it. And also some of our conveyor belts there in the middle of the factory go up very high in the air. And I'm thinking I think I want to have the walkway go over them, which means having to put it pretty high up. So I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna mess around and see what I end up with and see what I like. A thing that I really really appreciate about this game is that nothing you do is permanent. It's like super easy to undo anything that you build, and when you undo things, you get all of the materials back, which I just really like. Like it makes it like as I will admit that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, and sometimes in games I like I get a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Like sometimes it makes me a little bit stressed trying to figure out like, okay, what's the right way to place this, or like the optimal way to place this, or how am I supposed to build this thing? And I do really like that in this game. Like, do I still worry about doing things correctly and optimally? Yeah, I do. But at least I am not, at least like the like penalty for messing something up is really really, it's like basically nothing. Like it basically does not matter if you place something wrong. You can just undo it and redo it, and all you've lost are like a few moments of time, which is not so bad. I really appreciate that. So anyways, I'm messing around while I am doing the silly walkways. My partner is in the background bringing concrete over. So that's what that long conveyor belt in the middle of the factory is. We had our concrete set up over on that limestone node that I've been like walking over to pick concrete up every now and then. But now he just brought concrete over on a conveyor belt and added another box to our little storage area for concrete. So that's pretty handy. We're both doing equally important tasks. Me with my walkways and him with concrete. But yeah, I think at this point I'm trying to make I didn't want the walkway to just like it. I felt like it took up too much space to go directly up, if that makes sense. So I'm having it sort of like go up and make some turns a little bit, so that I can get it up as high as I wanted it to be, but without having to have this like one really long straight ramp that like cut into the like hub and our kind of like central area there. So I'm having it go around in a little loop, and then I'm going to have the ramp turn to the side and go across like this straight area of the factory, because I'm thinking that it'll be convenient to have the walkway go from this side, like the hub side of the factory, over top of a lot of these machines that we have running, and then go down over on this side of the factory, so like we can go from one side to the other without running through this big mess of machines and also conveyor belts, because now like the machines are kind of busy in that, like, there's like a lot of stuff taking up this space, but in addition to all of the machines, there's also these like all of the conveyor belts that we are setting up to go into our little storage area. Just, it makes for all around a lot going on. Like slightly annoying to walk through all that. So here's my little walkway. I realized that you can like sort of attach these walkways to some of the machines, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know that I would specifically need to do that, but I think it's neat that you can. Like, I just appreciate that you can. So I'm working on making this walkway go like down now. Oops, I jumped off of it. But I think I'm going to do like a similar thing on this other side and have it sort of like curve around like how I set up the walkway over here. So, yeah. Anthony's investigating the walkway, deciding if he likes it. And so far the verdict is unsure, which I think is pretty fair. That's sort of how I feel about it too, and I'm the one building it. But I don't know. I was like, to be honest, I was mostly just very excited to have a walkway somewhere in the factory. After finishing it and looking at it, like, it's pretty tall. It's pretty like it's not perfect, but look how fun it is to walk across the walkway. It's just like really really rewarding. I enjoy it. I don't have any regrets. Although I do see that it it probably can be improved in the future. But anyways, look, it's cute. Okay. That's all. Okay, so now at this point, my initial dreams of a walkway are all set. We're good. We have a walkway. So I want to check back in with the space elevator situation. So I used some of the materials that I needed for the space elevator, which also another thing that I have in the back of my mind is that I want to use some Awesome Shop tickets to unlock ladders, which require 3 tickets. And I think right now I have one, so I just need the Awesome Sync to be able to print 2 more tickets, and then we're good. Anyways, so I used some of the materials that I was like holding on to for the space elevator when I was building my walkway. So I'm going to have to grab some more, but we're getting pretty close on wire. Well, by pretty close, I mean about halfway, but that is like a pretty big improvement. So I'm just like replenishing some of the stuff that I need for the space elevator. And at this moment, I realized that when my partner was bringing over the concrete, he moved around these 2 conveyor belts a little bit, the iron rods and the iron sheets, and he connected them to the wrong boxes, but it's like not a big deal. We just kind of moved the items back to the boxes that he connected these conveyor belts to, because it's not that challenging to just that was easier than redoing the conveyor belts. Anyways, we made that quick fix. And then I grabbed some of the stuff that I needed for the space elevator that I didn't have yet. So now we once again are in the position of the only thing we're missing for the space elevator is wire. We are very close, but still have a couple hundred left. And so my partner and I decided to just manually craft the rest of the wire that we need, because as far as like objectives and milestones, we are literally just waiting to make the space elevator for us to be able to do the rest of our milestones. So we're going to do it. We're going to manually craft some wire. So yeah, we're not above it. Sometimes you just manually craft stuff. Thankfully for you watching, I edited this down so you don't have to watch me manually craft a ton of wire. So that's nice. I crafted some, and then my partner also crafted some. So I think between the 2 of us, we will have enough wire at some point. Yeah. Oh, nice. There it is. There's the wire delivery. Okay, perfect. Now we have enough wire. So now the plan is to construct the space elevator, and we're talking about where we want to place it. And our initial thought was, well, our entire thought was somewhere that is close to the base, but not right in the middle of all of this stuff that we have going on, and up on one of these hills that we have nearby. So I was looking at this hill, but my partner was looking at this other hill that's a little bit further away, that he pinged over there. So we're going to start by checking out that hill that's a little bit further, just to sort of like scope it out, see if we can fit the space elevator there, and like how it would look, and if we want to put it there. So I'm heading over in that direction to go check out that hill with him. But first of all, I'm gonna turn around and unlock the ladders from the Awesome Shop, because we we don't have a great, I also, me when I noticed multiple things, I also wanted to point out that there was a monster that we're going to have to go fight before we go up there. But anyways, I don't know that we have a super convenient way to get up to the top of that little rock hill thing. So if we unlock ladders, which we should be able to, yes, we have 2 more tickets that we can print, and I have 1 ticket in my inventory already. So that means we have 3 in total, which is the cost for ladders. Unlocking ladders will make it so much easier to get to the top of that hill without having to like find some weird way up there. So I'm gonna get ladders, and yeah.
Thank you for your purchase in the Fix It Awesome shop, the best store on the planet.
It's true that it's the best store on the planet, but it's also the only store, so at least the only store that I know of. Anyways, we have our ladders, or we have unlocked ladders, and I think I have the materials to make ladders. If I don't, I know that my partner does. Although, here's me deciding to get more materials for ladders. I was like, well, actually, since I'm right here, I'm pretty sure ladders just take a bunch of iron rods, so I'll just grab some extra iron rods. Anyways, the goal is to get to the top of this hill and ideally build the space elevator. So I'm gonna do this trick again. Oh, I didn't need to because my partner destroyed the monster, so we're actually all good. But I was crouching up to be able to help fight that monster thing, because again, the trick that I did earlier, where if you crouch up to them, they don't like notice you, so they don't explode. Anyways, we're building a ladder to get to the top of this rock thing and hopefully build our space elevator. It's pretty high up and we kind of have to get to it with a ladder, but that's not necessarily a problem. Oops. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But neither of us have been to the top of this little rock thing, so I don't know what we're gonna see just yet. And also we don't have a good way to like get over there safely. So we're gonna try to build a little bit of foundation so that we can so that we can safely get over there. I am gonna have my partner build a little bit more ladder, just because I don't know that I can make that jump. So he's gonna build, first he's gonna build a foundation in an inconvenient spot, but then he's gonna build some more ladder, maybe a little too much ladder, but it's fine. I'm just gonna break my ankles a little bit, and that's okay. Anyways, now we're on top of the rock. And okay, so first of all, there's a monster that we need to crouch up to and knock over so that it doesn't hurt us. But also there's this other monster, so we're gonna have to deal with this first. Oh. Sorry, buddy. Sorry that we invaded your home. Anyways, we got that monster. Now we're going to crouch up to this other monster over here. I guess, I don't know if monster is the right word. I feel like these are just plants and animals trying to live their lives. But anyways, they're dangerous. So yeah. Okay, cool. Got that one. And then, see, there was another one on the other side of that rock that we did startle because we didn't crouch up to it. And I ran away because I was scared, but my partner ran and dealt with that other explodey flower thing. Okay, anyway, so we're on top of this big rock thing. And it's not a it's not a bad spot. It's really large. The ground is pretty uneven. Also, there's this rock that is kind of in the way. But there's kind of a lot of places where we could put the space elevator, but because the ground is so uneven, we're not totally loving any of the placement options here. And also, we don't have explosives to get rid of that rock that's like sticking up right in the way. So we're not loving it. It's not my favorite. Again, we could and would put a bunch of foundation out to make the ground even so that we could build this here, but because it's like such a weird slope that we're sort of thinking that like foundation would just look kind of odd on it, you know? So we ultimately decided to leave and check out the other like rocky hill area that is like closer and kind of like right behind our base. So we're gonna head there. I'm just climbing down the ladder. Oh, okay. That was like a small fall. It's okay. Oops. Anyways, so we are heading over to the other hill to check that one out. And I don't know, kind of I feel good about this next hill. Also, like personally, I kind of like the idea of this other spot because it's a little bit closer to our base. So I think it'll be a little bit, I mean, the other one's not that far, so it wouldn't be inconvenient. But I like the idea of this one kind of right behind our base, like overlooking our factory kind of. We can get up to this other hill also without needing to use ladders. But we have to sort of like, we have to jump up in like just the right spot. I've like gone up to this part, like I've been on top of this rock previously, so I know that it's possible, but you have to kind of jump in exactly the right spot. So the top of this rock is also pretty uneven ground. Also, we have a couple of like little trees, or I guess like dead trees, I guess, to chop down here, just to make space. Okay, so because the ground is pretty uneven, we'll definitely need to build some foundation to make the space elevator be like it has to have a more even ground. Also, this rock is kind of small, like it's not exactly enough space for the space elevator, but because we're going to build foundation here anyways, it's okay. Like we don't need it to be big enough to have like to cover this whole entire thing, because we'll just put a bunch of foundation. So we're sort of like taking a look at the space, seeing how much foundation we'll need to put, seeing like where the space elevator would fit. And then we're going to build out a bunch of foundation so that we can place the space elevator. So yeah, here is the new future soon to be home of our space elevator, which I'm so excited. I feel like at the beginning of this day, I was not expecting us to build the space elevator because I felt like we had so many tasks, but I don't know, we went through things kind of quickly, or maybe we were further in the game than I realized. Anyways, we spent a bunch of time here figuring out exactly where to place the space elevator, and I'm gonna skip through all of that for you. You don't have to wait through all of it. You get to just skip all of the back and forth and nudging the space elevator. Here's where we ultimately decided to put it. And look at how cool it looks, and look at it get built. And oh my gosh, I'm so excited. It's so satisfying watching this get built. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Project assembly initialized. Congratulations, Pioneer. The space elevator will now automatically connect with the Project Assembly orbital platform. Project assembly is divided into phases, each of which require the delivery of project parts, such as smart plating, via the space elevator. Subsequent phases unlock access to new tiers with more advanced technologies to construct, automate, explore, and exploit. It is time to be honest. This project is part of the Save the Day program, the largest united undertaking in human history, destined to save us all. Earth is in peril and only Fix-It pioneers offer hope for survival. Fix-It is counting on you. Humanity is counting on you. Do not let Fix-It down.
Okay, of all of the things that we have built so far in the game, that is for sure the most exciting. Like, also, it makes me so curious about like what is the lore of this game? What are we doing? What's the story? I really like that in this game we sort of like get plopped down on this new planet and we have instructions and like there's some sort of mission that we're doing and like you just sort of accept that that's what you're supposed to be doing, but we don't know really why or like what we're doing yet. And I'm so curious. What are we doing? What are we doing? Anyways, I really loved seeing this part of the building or this part of the game get built. And it's so cool to know that there's like something in space that we're actually kind of connected to now. We ended up just building like a walkway around the space elevator platform to admire the space elevator a little bit more because it is pretty cool. And then I literally just walked around and looked at the space elevator. I wanted to see what the space elevator looked like from our base. So I climbed down just to sort of like get a better view. Because like it's huge. Another thing that I know from having played this game in another save is like you can see the space elevator everywhere. Like it is visible pretty much everywhere. I think probably like everywhere that you end up going on the map. So it ends up being super helpful to have it like we have it at base so it can sort of be a marker of like where base is because you can see it from a really big distance. But yeah, look at how cool it looks. And like the planet in the background and like the base of it is so big and then it goes all the way up into space. Like it's just so cool. I'm excited. Anyways, the space elevator will be the last thing that we work on in this session. This feels like a really, really good place to pause for the day and then, pick up what's after this. I mean, what do we do next? I don't know. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. This was part 3. Yeah, this has been part 3 of me actually learning how to play Satisfactory, and what a cool, what cool progress. We started the day working on like finishing an iron factory, and now we are connected to space. So that's pretty impressive, I would say. Next time, I think like we're stopping at such a cool point. So I think next time we're in for some like exploration and figuring out what is next. Like what do we do after having built the space elevator? Like what else is there in the game? We're going to find out. Anyways, that's next time. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you in the next session.